Depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night even. My name is Jo Herbert James, and I'm one of the deputy leaders at the WEA's Mission Commission. I'm based in Wales, UK, with my husband Pete, where I'm studying a PhD in Christian theology and climate change. I'm here to talk about missions engagement with creation as we consider this theme of inclusion. There is so much that I can't say in 10 minutes, so I want to focus on why this is important and how we can do this more. So why is this so important? The current ecological crisis is unprecedented, and we cannot underestimate the scale of the challenge for today's world or for future generations. We are now in what many call the Anthropocene, the age where human activity is the most dominant over the earth. This has seen a loss of species and ecosystems at an unimaginable rate over the last 50 years. Climate change not only affects non-human life forms and future generations, the impacts have been felt deeply by people living in poverty around the world for many years already. This has been in the form of increased natural disasters, food insecurity due to erratic rains or frequent droughts, and mass migration in search of water sources and fertile land, and more. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, tells us that approximately 3.3 to 3.6 billion people live in contexts that are highly vulnerable to climate change, an extraordinary number of people. So what has this got to do with missions? No person, no country or people group is or will be unaffected by climate change. Some countries will see their landscapes radically change. Landscapes are at risk of becoming completely inhospitable, leading to further poverty, environmental refugees, and more. When we're thinking about the future well-being of missions, this issue can't be excluded. We cannot be naive in thinking that this issue won't impact us. Creation care needs to be included in our understandings of the mission of God. Sounds overwhelming? For me, the answer lies in our theological understanding of creation care and our missiology. If you will, allow me to indulge a little in some of my own journey with this, moving from complete disinterest to the point where I have committed my life's work to this issue. I won't give you the whole story, but I'll give you some. So I gave my life to Jesus when I was 17 years old. And although a lot led me up to that point, it was one of those dramatic conversions that changed my life completely. Everything changed for me. And I fell completely in love with Jesus and his kingdom. That's where my passion for mission began. My life had been completely changed by meeting Jesus, and I wanted everyone else to have the opportunity to meet him too. This led me to spend some time in Lebanon, and I often talk about my time in Lebanon as my second conversion. This is where I saw up close the horrors and scars of war, of poverty, violence, corruption, disease, and abuse. I quickly began to understand that the good news of Jesus, yes, meant that people I met had the opportunity to hear of Jesus' love for them. But the good news also meant freedom from oppression. This revelation led me to work for Tear Fund, the UK-based evangelical NGO known to end poverty, working to end poverty, where I worked for the following 15 years. A key issue for Tear Fund is how changing climates are affecting the lives of people living in poverty. In 2005, when I started, this was new news to me. Today we're awash with research studies, evidence and stories telling us of how environmental sustainability is undermining the lives of the poor. So here I was, this fresh-faced 22-year-old, passionate about participating in God's mission, having discovered that freedom from oppression or justice was central to the mission of God. And now beginning to understand that care for creation was central to people being lifted out of poverty. But the problem was, I wasn't interested in the environment. I wasn't interested in climate change, in nature. I barely recycled. And if I'm honest, I wasn't the slightest bit interested. My understanding of God's mission did not include any space for creation care. No one had taught me this was important. I began to read the Bible with fresh eyes and saw creation everywhere. It was becoming plainly obvious that creation had an important place in God's missions. I learned things like that when in John 3:16 it says that God so loved the world, that world means cosmos. God so loved the whole cosmos that he gave his one and only son. I had been taught to replace the cosmos with just my name. I began to read verses like Colossians 1:15-23, that it was for Jesus that all things have been created in him, all things hold together, and through him all things will be reconciled to God. It goes on. This is the gospel that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven. How had I not seen this before? Not only are the modern issues of a changing global climate and sustainability affecting all people on earth, most markedly those living in poverty, but the restoration and reconciliation of the whole of creation is included within the Missio Dei, and for too long it's been excluded. So what does this mean for global mission? Well, again, there's so much that I don't have time to say, so I want to focus on two things here. Firstly, embracing environmental missions as a new category within missions work. And secondly, how all missions work bring creation care into all that it does. So firstly, embracing environmental missions as a new category. Well, arguably, environmental missions or environmental missionaries are not new. However, there's opportunity to embrace this as a more recognised and celebrated category within missions. In 2012, the Lausanne movement held the Lausanne Global Consultation on Creation Care and the Gospel in collaboration with the World Evangelical Alliance. One of their calls to action that came from that was to encourage the church to promote environmental missions as this new category, kind of akin to the function of medical missions. I find this helpful as it's easy to see how medical missions fit within the global missions of God. It's also, I find it easy to see that not all of us are called to be medical missionaries. There are special skills and special callings required. And so with environmental missionaries. Like medical missions, environmental missions hold the opportunity to open doors, countries, people groups that are often hard to open. Some parts of the world are wanting conservation and reforestation expertise in their countries. Environmental missionaries are able to hold the space where care and restoration of God's creation, sharing the good news, discipleship, and church planting can converge. And although there are some mission organisations embracing this already, there is plenty of room for others to adopt this as a strategy and encourage more missionaries. Who are the environmental missionaries that God wants to send? Do you know anyone that God may be calling? How can you encourage them? What is God saying to you personally? Let's all have our eyes open for these people. But what about those of us who either don't have the skills or calling to be environmental missionaries? Well, once again, I find the continuing lightness to medical missions can help us here as well. Most of us are likely not to be called to be medical missionaries. We're not doctors, nurses, midwives, surgeons, or any other number of medical specialists. However, we are aware of basic health advice and practices that we ourselves uphold and would encourage others to do the same. None of us would give communities contaminated drinking water, saying, "Oh, it's okay, the medical missionaries will sort you out if you get ill." Of course not. It's unthinkable. And as so when it comes to care of God's creation, we shouldn't be irresponsibly using the earth's resources, littering the planet, and any number of other things, saying, "But that's not my calling. The environmental missionaries will deal with that." As we said earlier, the reconciliation of all of creation is part of the Missio Dei, and therefore, if we want to be faithful to God's mission, we should all be embracing this as a part of our daily missions practice. Perhaps not as specialists, but not handing out dirty water either. It can be overwhelming when we start to talk about bringing creation care into our practices, but it need not be. That increasing number of organisations and resources available to help. When we understand that environmental sustainability is important to any community, country or people group, we should be the people that tell them that God is not silent on this issue. This needs to be a part of our discipleship programs. There's so much more that can be said here. Climate breakdown in all of its forms represents a broken relationship, and we believe that the way to true reconciliation is the cross of Jesus Christ. And that's the news we are called to carry to the whole of creation, to the ends of the earth. I know many of you are already fully on board and active in this area. Many of you will agree wholeheartedly and may be stuck on what to do practically, and others may be starting this journey. Wherever you are on the journey, the WEAMC will journey with you. Thank you all for caring about the world that God so loves.